Gentleman, the scholar, Mr. Speaker, on the bill, please.
On the bill, sir.
Well, and I'm glad that that Mr. Farrell brought up a car analogy. I'm gonna get to that in a second. But the point that I'm trying to make here is we're midway through our budget cycle, as was pointed out by several of us. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. We've got 4 or 5 bills to go, and a lot of debate to get there. But we're being asked to take a vote on this bill. Then we get the next bill, we tear through it, we find your mistakes, we identify them, point them out, but we press forward anyways, and we debate and vote on the next bill. We are doing this piecemeal. I hope you didn't negotiate this budget like this, where you negotiate the first piece, because a tax credit sounds great. We're going to give the farmers a tax credit. That's wonderful. But 3 bills from now, we're going to hit them with an increase on their minimum wage. It's going to be a bigger impact than the credit that we're talking about now. But we don't know that because we don't have the benefit of the context. This is my 4th budget that I've seen, and to this point, we started voting on these bills. We had all the bills. We knew where we were going to land. We knew where the spending plan was. But now this bill, we're going to take a vote on some tax cuts, but we don't know what's in the subsequent bills that are coming, and we may not be getting it done. This may not be enough for our farmers. That's the concern I have. That's my thoughts on the tax credit. And then the other thing I wanted to point out, the STAR exemption, and I'm glad that another colleague touched on it. But the governor seems very focused on a 2% self-imposed cap. I guess in a hat tip to all the other municipalities that have had the pleasure of dealing with the tax cap over the last several years, most of which would tell you that when they get done with the formula, their number is a lot lower than 2%. 2% would be a dream for them right now. And in fact, some schools in my district have a negative tax cut, if you want to figure out how to calculate that one. That's right, a negative tax cap, that's what their number comes up. So their number has to be less than last year's budget. But the governor is chasing this 2%. I heard the chairman say earlier that we landed on an exactly 2% increase. But what we've done is an accounting gimmick where we are going to take money out of the appropriation side in STAR, and we're going to be taking less revenue in the form of a tax credit. This frees up more money to spend it. It's a way to mask spending. It's a way to make a number that's higher than 2% come down to 2%. So I think that's worth pointing out here, because I could tell you a lot of our local municipalities would love to get into some accounting gimmicks to massage the way that their tax cap calculations work. So I think it's just worth pointing that out here, that we've done a few accounting gimmicks here with STAR, and we're putting a lot more work on our assessors to manage what's already a pretty complicated system with this change that we're going to be making to them midstream. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I did leave out the car.
Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chairman yield?
Yes, Mr. Lopez.
Mr. Farrell yields. Mr. Lopez.
So, and Chairman, thank you for your patience. I know we seem to be focusing much on the same basic elements of this bill. And I, too, am going to go to the farm workforce retention tax credit. We had some discussion of this during the One House bill, and you were very gracious. And I think your comments, your reflection was, we certainly don't want to hurt farmers when contemplating a minimum wage increase. I think that was, we were both of the same mind at that point.
That's true.
And thank you for that. And my concern, and I'll go back to, and I would say this House as a rule shares that sentiment. I don't think that anyone in this House wants to hurt family farms. I think everyone understands their importance.
A matter of fact, may I add a little to that?
Please.
Last 2 years ago, we gave the farmers a 20% property tax.
Yes.
A 20% property tax last 20 years, not 20 years ago, 2 years ago, which was very important to the farmers. So I just want to say that because I don't want it to come out that we're not trying to help the farmer.
No, I understand. So I'm going to go back and hit this a little bit differently, very similar to what my other colleagues have done, but a little differently. So I was reading a report that was produced by Farm Credit East, which suggests that the rollout or that the rollout of the minimum wage increase will cost farmers somewhere between $400 to $600 million annually for their payroll costs. And so I'm just trying to equate that to the total benefit of the tax credit. I know we've heard about it in different ways, but do we have a sense of what when we get to 2021 at $600 per farm employee, do we have a sense of how much the state would be providing as a credit? What that loss of revenue would be, or what the dollar amount would be in 2021?
About 130 million.
So we're looking at between 400 to 600 million in cost. And just to put in perspective, 130 million. I know you said that there are other things that are going to help offset, but are those other things going to get to the point where we effectively try to hold farmers harmless? Are we going to get to 400 million? Are we going to get to 600 million in not just this particular credit, but in other benefits to family farms to stabilize them? As you think about everything that you can envision in this bill, which we haven't seen yet or may come across later.
What do you mean in this budget?
Are we going? Yes. Are we going to hit 400 million in benefits to offset the impact on family farms?
No, I don't think so. But I don't. See, I'm having trouble with these numbers you're giving me.
Yeah, it's farm
You're getting
credit.
good. You can be on our side.
Farm
But
credit.
You
East.
got to understand that those. When you hear those studies, if you give me yours, I can't answer you because I can't check your words to make sure, not your words,
No,
but
that's okay.
your ideas, where you get them from.
Yeah.
Because I have a different idea of what you're saying. And again, I'd go back to what I said before. The things we're doing here don't hurt the farmer. It helps the farmer because we've done that as we did 2 years ago and we're doing now.
Yeah. So I'll go back to the issue of family farms, and for any farmer, if you ask them what are their two priorities when it comes to their business, first they'll say the price of the product, and then the second thing they'll say is the cost of inputs, and that includes farm labor. So energy costs, labor costs, other costs, taxes. And so, again, this particular, and I'll give you the source, just let me pull it up here quickly on my phone. I just pulled it off the internet. There's a Farm Bureau press release dated March 23rd.
Yeah.
2016, and they make reference to a report published by Farm Credit East, and that can be found readily on the Farm Credit East website. So I'll just leave that for you and for your
Right.
number crunchers to go back to. But again, my main premise is the number that they are projecting. This is Farm Credit East, which is a major player in farm financing in New York, is estimating impact between 400 million and 600 million annually.
Yeah.
So what I was asking was, and you've answered in part, you're telling me that the retention tax credit is going to be about 140 million,
Yeah.
if I heard properly.
Yes.
So we're still short by a substantial amount.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm asking is, are these other benefits or other pieces of the rollout of the budget that are farm friendly, are they going to offset roughly 300 million or more in losses to these farms?
I don't know if I can answer that. I know that, as I said, there are other things that we're doing that the farmer can do, and I'd go back again and say, I'd like to see how much it helped the things we did with the property tax, how well that did. That's something we did, and it helped them. So you could put that together with what you're talking about, and then you might find that the numbers are not so high.
So my challenge is, again, as we try to quantify, ultimately, our job, your job, collectively, the job of the legislature and the governor, as it gets back to family farms, is we're hoping to do no harm. But based on this discussion, I don't think we can quantify whatever benefits that are being provided in this budget that can offset.
Well, as I said before,
projected
also,
impact.
all of the farmers are not paying them $9. They're paying more. So that's why I don't really agree with some of the numbers.
Yeah.
Because if they were doing this is what it would be.
Yeah.
And in reality, they're not actually putting the figures together of who is paying and getting what.
Yeah.
And when you get an actual count, you might find those numbers are not as high as you have there. And we will continue to try to help them because, once again, I'm going to say we did something good 2 years ago. We're trying to do something good here with the tax cut because, remember, their family probably pay personal income tax in these family farms you talk about, and they also are getting a tax. They're getting a tax cut because of that. We'd have to check how that does if you know how many of the family is working and are they getting a salary, and is that salary, do they pay the child, the family person to do it,
Right.
and that gives you another savings that occurred right there in the farm.
So thank you. I'm going to go back to another part of the discussion we had too was the volatility of the marketplace, particularly with dairy. And dairy, I don't know if it's still at the same number. Maybe some of my colleagues can correct me. But at one point, dairy was about 60% of farm production. I don't know if we're still at that number or not, but I'm sure we're still in that general area. And in the conversation, if you recall, I talked to you about the break-even cost of milk production, fluid milk production in New York.
Yeah.
And by all estimates, it's somewhere between $18 and $20 per hundredweight. My understanding is that at this time that we are at $14 per hundredweight and maybe a little bit below. So we are actually in a situation. So outside of trying to balance the cost of minimum wage and offsetting that with tax credits, we also have the volatility of the marketplace where there is no floor of pricing for fluid milk production. So if we're down to 1,400, we're dumping milk. It's costing farmers to produce. Mm-hmm. They're losing money. So in this case, I guess my challenge and our collective challenge is outside of the variable cost or the additional cost from us artificially, we have the market fluctuation, which is punishing farms now. So when you think about the gap between what we're providing to farms with tax credits, et cetera, and minimum wage, and then look at dairy farms losing on a daily basis, I don't see how we win at all. We should be manning the pump, so to speak, and looking for ways to subsidize or provide a floor. As we did years ago, back in 2007, I think we provided subsidies. This House was very, very astute and very generous in helping level out a crisis with dairy farmers. I think we're heading in that same direction. Now we're going to add to that crisis, unfortunately, by placing this artificial burden of minimum wage increase. So I'm just bringing that to your attention because, and again, I'll ask your number crunchers to go back and look at that, but I'm fearful that as we move, even without minimum wage increase, we're going to have a hard time keeping many of our farms in place. I just want to shift quickly, if I can, back to businesses, because that's the other part of the equation, small business.
Say that again, back to.
If we can shift back to small business, there was a question about bear with me, the small business tax cuts, and that was removed from this budget. So I know you mentioned the income tax break, the middle income tax cut as benefiting businesses and farms.
Yeah.
Do we know what the impact of minimum wage is going to be on small business? And I would ask you the same question. What are we doing to help fill that gap? So,
No, well,
what are we doing for small business?
The small businesses and the mom and pop, they do their income tax is how they pay each other, that income tax. The tax cut we put in, they will get that tax cut.
Yeah.
So that's a help for them.
Yeah, so I guess I go back to the last I knew, or the last estimate I'd seen for the rollout of minimum wage was somewhere around $15 billion to all employers at the end of the rollout. So small business is probably the larger employer of record. So I don't know how much small businesses are going to pay of that estimated $15 billion. Do we know?
That's another one you have to be careful of. Small business, depending on who you're talking to, there are a couple of businesses that are $1 million businesses which fall under the small business. When I'm talking about small business, I'm talking because for my neighborhood mom and pop stores, things like that. And, you know, and there are 2 or 3 people in there. I used to work in one of them. And they people having work. So the people who need the help the most are the small business people who are getting their business and paying their taxes, that they will get a tax cut. That is a help for them.
Right. So I guess what I don't know, and I'm not sure if you know, is tax cuts notwithstanding, or with tax cuts in full view, I should say, what's the difference between their additional cost and any benefit that they get from tax cuts? Do we know what that number is?
You know, that question is, what will they do if they buy a car? I mean, there's some things that I mean, doing those type of things, they make it look bad, but it's not really.
Yeah,
I mean, because you got to get the full value.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm driving at is, you know, with any public policy, particularly at this level, we should have enough sophistication to do some economic modeling. We should be able to say, you know, if we visit this cost structure on businesses, we're expecting impact X. And realize this is a ripple effect. It's not just the wage increase, it's workers' comp, it's unemployment insurance, all those things that are based on salaries.
Right.
And we have the ripple effect, of course, of workers who may not be at minimum wage or are above minimum wage now, but are going to see, I think they use the term compression. I'm not sure how that term applies, but I would call it market adjustment, where other employees are going to say, well, hey, minimum wage is now 15. I was $2 or $3 above minimum wage. These employers, you need to adjust me as well. So unavoidably, what we're really talking about is almost like the stock market. In this case, is a significant market adjustment, a market shift that will not just affect minimum wage earners, but it's going to have repercussions for every wage earner above minimum wage who's going to now be looking to be paid more and try to keep their relative spacing or ratio between minimum wage and where they were.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering, from an economic modeling standpoint, do we have a sense of what that market adjustment really means?
No, not at this point.
Yeah,
Not
so-
based on the things you've said. But again, I'm going to.
But do you agree-
I wonder if. Are you opposed to giving a pay increase? Do you think we shouldn't do it?
I like your question. I'll address that on the bill. Well, I can address that with you now. So if I were king of the forest,
Yeah.
all right, I think you can even put that to music. If I were king of the forest.
If you were the king,
So if I were king, not
get it,
king,
I
but
get it.
king, I would be looking at a package that would include workforce training, that would look at continuing education, that would look at aggressive linkage of employees to businesses that are critically looking for new employees that pay higher wages. I would have a comprehensive package. We ate up on my time, darn it. You're so
No,
good.
good.
You're so good. We'll come back later. Thank you.
Mr. Palmisano.
Mr. Speaker, will Mr. Farrell yield for a few questions?
Surely.
Mr. Farrell yields.
Thank you, Danny, for your patience at this late hour. We certainly appreciate what you're doing over there. I wanted to touch on a few of the issues that you probably heard already on this, just to clarify. First, regarding the change with the STAR exemption, what's, I guess, the genesis? What's the reason to do this? I mean, this is a program that's been extremely
Nothing in
successful.
my pay scale does it say, why is it done? That's not my job.
All right, fair enough. But what's the? I mean, this has been a successful program. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
It's provided property tax relief to seniors and residents across the state since its inception. It's been very successful, very popular, correct?
Yes.
So now we're changing the program. Why?
To make it better.
How are we making? Okay, I understand. I don't want to go that way with you. I'm sorry. Let me.
Oh,
let
I
me
thought you
digress a little bit here. Quick question relative to, we've been adhered to a 2% spending cap.
Yeah.
Now, the way I understand this proposal if by changing it to an income tax credit, now we spend about, is it about $3.4 billion on the STAR program as it currently exists? Is that about right, approximately? So, and I know this is only affecting new homeowners, but if we were to take that and if say we were to apply that for everyone, and we changed it all to an income tax credit, which the governor really wanted to do, now it's not a tax exemption. Now it's not an expenditure that's coming out of the spending. Now it's a decrease in revenue that's coming in because of the tax credit. Wouldn't that then allow, because of the accounting figures, allow the state to spend, if we're using just that number as an example, $3.4 billion more within the cap?
Yes.
So isn't this really an accounting gimmick for the governor to circumvent the 2% cap that he says we have, that's really just circumventing the cap?
No, I think he thought he had an idea, and that idea is to do a better job for the people. They have the option of doing it. There's so many things we do, remembering that the 2% is self-inflicted, and we choose to, the governor chooses and we choose to do it. But there are many ways that there's shifting of monies that we do, and it has nothing to do with anything other than trying to make a better government. And the governor thinks, and I agree with him, that this will help make a better government.
So there's a responsibility for notification. Who's involved in notifying the residents of the change of the program? Would that fall on the assessor? Does that fall on the state?
When they buy the house and go in, you're asking about the people who join. When they go in, they'll know, they will tell them how they're going to get it back.
So more of this burden would fall on the assessor then.
Yes.
So where the municipalities where have the mandated the cap, there's more cost that would be with the change in the program to the local municipality. Wouldn't that be true?
Yes. Yes, I think
Yep.
so.
So what about if someone who comes in and applies before this takes effect, have applied already, but then, because I guess with the taxable year, it's my understanding from reading the language, but I'm not an attorney, but from reading the language of the bill, they apply, then this goes into effect. They've already applied.
Yeah.
Then, the way I read the language, later on, it becomes void because of the way this language reads. And just let me read it to you. It says, if any application was approved prior to the effective date of the subdivision, that is not approvable hereunder. Such approval that notice shall be required. It goes on to say that was submitted prior to the effective date, not approvable. See, I'm not a lawyer, so I just,
Oh, wait a minute.
where did it say void? And it says it will become void. So they applied, they got accepted into the STAR program. Now this change comes in. Now that application becomes void, correct? And now they have to go back and reapply again?
That's correct.
So we're putting more of an onus and more responsibility on the assessor. We're basically putting possible that the homeowner might not do it, something can get mixed, and they would lose that exemption, correct? Or could lose that exemption.
Yes, it could happen.
So how is this making the program better when we've had a program that's worked so successfully?
You have to look at the big picture.
I'm trying, Denny. I'm trying. Believe me, I'm trying. But I just don't see it. Okay. Fair enough. I want to switch over to, well, one other question on that. Senior citizen, they're downsizing their home because they need to downsize. They want something less. So now after this program comes into effect, where before the taxes would just come right off their tax bill, now they're not going to be eligible to get it right off the property tax. So now they're going to have to pay for that property tax up front, correct? Mm-hmm. So senior citizens who are on fixed incomes now have to pay for this property taxes up front rather than getting that exemption up front. So now they have to wait whether they file their income taxes. So that's going to put more of a burden. It's going to increase the property tax for that senior citizen, correct?
No. Yeah, it may be they will, in the end, the citizens will get it back.
But they'll have to,
They may have to pay it out first and then bring it back.
right, and you know, obviously you would agree, senior citizens on a fixed income, that's hard to come up with that money. And that's why the STAR program, we have the enhanced STAR that provides more of a benefit for our seniors on a fixed income, so they don't have to pay that. The state covers that. It's property tax relief, which the governor has touted. This makes the senior citizen pay that money up front, and they don't get it back
But
until they
that's
park.
only if they do something building and work on the building.
Or if they buy a new home, they're going into a new
Yeah,
property.
well,
So I guess my question next is where do they? I just don't see how this is better for the city, because it's going to put more of a challenge and a burden on our senior citizens, those on a fixed income. So that's a concern I have with this STAR change that the governor's making regarding this proposal and the fact that the legislature accepted it. Let me go on to the tax cut proposal, if I could. I know it's being touted, and I like tax cuts as much as anyone else, but I'm trying to get my hand up. This is like a 10-year phase-in of this tax cut, correct?
no.
Income tax cut?
What is it, 6?
8, 10.
8 years,
I'm sorry.
6
So-
years from when it starts.
So it basically would affect anyone from up to $300,000. So for a family of four, and this is why we have a little frustration. If we had more time, or more staff to go through, we can go through some more of these details, hear from people back at home and say, hey, I want an income tax cut, but how is this going to affect me? And I guess we did some back of the napkin arithmetic here, and if I understand it correctly, for a family of four making $60,000 a year, which is primarily the number of people in my district, not a lot of them make over $60,000 a year, but a family of four making $60,000 a year with the standard tax deduction, in year one, they would bring home a total of $43 in tax cuts. Does that sound right?
Yes,
So $43 in tax cuts for a family of four making $60,000 a year. That would rise to $86 in year two. So does that sound about right?
yes, it will continue to go up.
All right. So, I mean, and again, tax cuts are important, but for a family of four to get $43, that is not a significant amount of money. Let me go on.
But when it ends, they will get more. Just like we do everything, doing it in day, little by little, this will, as you said, it will have 6 years to move up. But when we go up, it will be more money, and it will be good money.
By year 8. Okay, let's go to the farm tax credit if we could. I know a couple of my colleagues have talked about that. I recently met with one of I have an agriculture advisory committee, met with some dairy farmers. And I know the spin on this is to try to help the farmers, but I believe this proposal, quite frankly, is almost an insult to our farmers based on what we're looking at with the proposed minimum wage, because it's my understanding with the minimum wage increase, as it was mentioned, it will be 70 cents on the first year, but based on the tax credit they're going to get, they're going to get about 12 cents of that savings on a 70-cent increase. Does that sound right?
Well, yeah, if they bought a car and they paid $30 to pay for the car, it would even be less. You're picking two numbers and then putting them together, and I don't fully understand why that should be the numbers you're using. We're giving them a tax cut, and then at the same time, we're making sure that people get paid, and they're making more money. But at the same time, caring for farmers, we didn't just say, screw it, everybody will be like New York City and that's it. We did not do that. We looked and said, how can they survive? How can we work? How can we help them? And at the same time, help the workers. And that's what we did. We did a lower number, a smaller number, but at the same time, we're also doing something to help them.
So just to give you an example of a dairy farmer in our district who's with the price of milk at $17, because you would agree the price for a dairy farmer, for a grape farmer, those prices they have no control over, so they can't just increase the price.
Yes, I know that.
So, one of our dairy farmers said that they're losing for, at the price of $17 a hundredweight, they were losing $3.50 a day per cow. So a farm of 100 cows is losing $350 a day, every day, 7 days a week, $365 days a year, which is about $127,000. They don't have the income to do this. They have to take that off their equity. This is going to be a very, very challenging burden on them. So I guess I didn't really have a question on that then. I apologize. It's a little late. I'm a little punchy. Mr. Speaker, on the bill. Thank you, Denny.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, I know the hour's late. I know this is a bill that's talking about tax cuts. First and foremost, this STAR program change is absolutely ludicrous in my opinion. We had a program that worked, that was successful, that people liked, and to me, I think this is just an accounting gimmick so the governor can spend more money to say he's under the 2% cap, because when you look at the expenditure, now it's not going to be spent. It's going to be less tax revenue coming in. This is a control thing. This is all about controlling this project. And, for our seniors who are on fixed income, now they have to pay this money out of their pocket rather than getting the exemption right at the time they get their property tax bill. For these individuals who are on fixed incomes, that's going to be very difficult to go. I'm very concerned about that aspect of it. A tax cut that will increase for a family of four making $60,000 a year. They're going to get $43 in year one. But I want to go to the farming side of this. We're trying to help family farms, but this is going in the wrong. This minimum wage, make no mistake, my colleagues, this minimum wage is going to destroy the family farm in New York State. The governor was on TV earlier saying this is going to make a national impact, and he's right. We're going to destroy the family farm in New York State. Just right now, before this minimum wage increase goes in, the total labor costs in New York right now is 63% of net cash farm income. Net farm income, I'm going to talk about this later on the minimum wage too because it's that important. The net income is the amount families have to pay their living expenses, or repay their debt, reinvest in equipment, buildings, and livestock. 63% before the minimum wage goes in. That's compared to the U.S. average, which is 36%. An increase like this is going to be devastating to our family farm. And Farm Credit East did a study. This is going to increase their labor costs anywhere from 30 to 50%. And farms that were profitable before this, anywhere from 1,300 to 2,000 family farms that were profitable based on this proposal, 13 to 2,000 farms are going to go in the negative. This proposal, this minimum wage proposal, is going to be a disaster for our family farms, not to mention our not-for-profits. And when we see the bill, we'll see how that all comes up and what kind of help's there for them. I'm not sure we're going to see it. But for our family farms, I'm very concerned as someone who has more wineries in their district than any other member in the legislature, someone who has dairy farms all over the place. Agriculture is supposed to be our #1 industry. The governor promotes we're going to support our wineries, and a proposal like this is going to be devastating. The tax cut proposal in here for farms, quite frankly, is an insult. When I talk to my farmers back at home, they're going to say, this isn't going to do anything for me, and quite frankly, you're not going to spend any money on it because they're all going to be these farms are going to be going out of business. I'm very, very concerned about where this is going, this minimum wage proposal, which is not here yet. But with this proposal, I'm very, very concerned. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mrs. Speaker, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Murray?
Madam Speaker, would the chairman rise for a quick question or two?
Does Chairman yield?
Yes.
Thank you, Denny. Real quick, and I won't talk about the farm credit, so something different. The Empire State Commercial Production Tax Credit. Can you just tell me who is eligible for that? Who does that apply to?
Commercials.
Yeah, any company that wants to make commercial movies.
So it's or commercials, like
Yes.
TV commercials.
Yes.
Okay, great. That's great, Madam Speaker, on the bill.
On the bill?
Okay, so this is just kind of a rhetorical question. So all of my colleagues, just file it under the food for thought category. But so The governor has been running for the past couple of years his commercials through the Empire State Development Program, the Startup New York commercials, and the Open for Business commercials. We have spent tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars running these commercials. And these commercials are supposed to be to entice out-of-state businesses to come to New York. Of course, about 40% of the commercials have actually run in-state, so some have rather affectionately dubbed the commercials as Cuomo promos. So I'm seeing here that perhaps in addition to taxpayers footing the bill for running these commercials, the taxpayers may also be footing the bill to give a commercial production tax credit to the companies who are producing the Cuomo promos. Just a little food for thought. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ms. Wozniak.
Will the chairman yield?